about is the problem of evil. This is one that can be very hard for people. Like I said at the beginning, a lot of people, this is the wall that keeps them from believing God. Because the question is if there's a good, perfect, loving God, why would he allow so much evil, pain, and suffering to go on in this world? And that is a hard question. Because how do you rationalize that? If someone is perfectly good, perfectly loving, wouldn't he want us to not go through pain and suffering? If he's perfectly loving, why would he let us go through that? And that is the challenge for many people, is how do you overcome that? Especially people who go through a lot of trauma. People who go through a lot of hurts and pain and suffering in this world, because not only how do you wrestle with that, but how do you have that conversation? I don't know any of your stories, but if you've not gone through stuff that's really difficult, if you've not had traumatic experiences in life, how do you relate with that? How do you have that conversation with someone when you've never been there, right? My best friends growing up, one was a meth addict, one was a heroin addict, one was a dealer. I didn't touch it. I can't relate to the addiction, but I can relate to the person who that's their friend and you love and you want to try and help them. So I can have those conversations, but if somebody comes to me and said, hey, I'm addicted to this, I can't relate with that. And so being able to have the conversations and understanding the premise of apologetics is what? Let's go back over that. What is the first thing we do in apologetics? Listen first, then what? And then speak. Because if you've never gone through it, don't try to act like you did. Don't try to put yourself in their shoes. That's not fair to them. Don't pretend like you know. And so being able to listen and empathize and hear what they're saying and then engage them in their pain and in their suffering and have the words to maybe help uplift them without pretending like you know, that is hard. That is probably one of the most difficult things as Christians that we have to learn how to do. If you claim Christ and you want to be able to have those conversations, it is a skill set that takes time and intentional effort to develop. And hopefully I can maybe help give you guys some tips, some perspectives on that. I will be a little bit more honest about kind of my life and some of the things I've gone through. If you guys ever want to know, or if you guys ever feel like reading it later on, I did attach a little bit about myself at the end. Don't read it now, but you guys, if you want to know, it's there. First thing we'll talk about, what is evil? Let's go back to our definition of evil from the start. What is evil?
Lack of good.
Lack of good. Is evil an original thing? Was it original to humanity? No. Evil is a parasite. A parasite is a thing that cannot survive on its own. Okay? Evil, by its very nature, that is what Augustine taught, that is what C.S. Lewis taught, that is what they believed at their very core. Evil is a parasite. And the reason we can understand that, and that we can understand it was a parasite discovered in the garden, is because the truth is, being completely honest, Satan did bring us a gift. Whether you like it or not, he brought us a gift. The question is was it a good gift or a bad gift? That is a conversation, that is a point people will bring up to you. Satan gave us a gift, he gave us knowledge. Was it good knowledge or bad knowledge? Because we had knowledge. We got to walk with God. Adam got to sit with God. Adam got to be in the very presence of God all the time. He had knowledge. The question was the knowledge that Satan brought good or bad? Because he did bring us a gift. It's the truth.
It was both.
It was bad. It was only bad because we didn't know bad. We knew good, so he couldn't bring us a good gift that we didn't know.
The tree was knowledge of good and evil.
We knew good because we knew God. He brought us a bad gift. It could only be bad because he brought it and said, do what's opposite of God. That is the foundational idea. Evil is a parasite discovered in the garden because what evil is simply a separation from God. It's being able to choose a life separate from our Creator. That is all evil is. From the Christian worldview, what is God? Is he good, bad, evil? What is God from the Christian perspective? Okay. More importantly, what is he the source of? He is the source of all good. From the Christian worldview, God is the source of all good, and if evil is the lack of good, it is simply the lack of God. That is what evil is. And so when God loved us enough to give us free will, because he did not need us, he was perfect in his triune existence between him, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, and he did not need us. He wanted to have a creation that he could have a relationship with and that could choose him. And so when God gave us the opportunity to choose, he gave us the opportunity to choose to reject him, to know a life separate from him. Evil is simply a lack of God, or living a life separate from God. And that is what we found in the Garden of Eden. That is the gift Satan brought us, was to be able to know a life separate from God. He didn't bring us a good gift. He did bring us a gift, but he did not bring us a good gift. And that is the premise of what evil is. It is a parasite. Not original to man, not original to us, but when we chose to know life separate from God, it was a choice that rooted ourselves in our very flesh. What does Paul tell us about sin? Sin is simple. We're going to use sin and evil very interchangeably in this conversation. What did he call sin? What did he say? It took root where? He said, I do what I hate, but I can't do what I want, for it is not I that do it, but it is the sin that dwells in me. That is what Paul tells us. Sin latches itself onto our very heart. And that's what we see consistently from Old Testament to New Testament, is evil is a heart condition. It is a condition that latches itself onto us at the moment we chose to live separate from God. The moment we chose to know evil, or to know a life without God. We're going to go through that. So I need a couple of readers. We're going to, page 15, need 4 readers.
The heart is deceitful above all things and desperately sick. Who can understand it?
So we grab the next one.
So now it is no longer I who do it, but sin that dwells within me.
Next one.
The Lord that saw the wickedness of man was great in the earth, and that every intention of the thoughts of his heart was only evil continually.
And Jesus said to him, Why do you call me good? No one is good except God alone.
So God is our source of goodness. Evil is a parasite, and evil is knowing life separate from God, or evil is the lack of God. Evil dwells in our very heart. We are told that our heart is wicked and deceitful above all other things. The inclination of every man is evil. Whether you like it or not, anyone can do anything at any moment if it was what they wanted to do. Right? The most evil atrocities are committed by the most normal people. We think of Hitler, we think of Mao Zedong, we think of all these people. But the truth is there's far more evil committed by the average person than there ever was a dictator. It's the truth. Evil is incredibly ordinary and normal for humans. It's our condition. It's the root of who we are, because it's a root in our flesh, and it's a parasite living off us until the day that we get to know Christ forever. And it's a condition we have to live with. And the beauty is that God tells us that he would give us a way of escape. He tells us that he has not given us any challenge that we cannot bear, but he has given us a way of escape. In other words, we're gonna be tempted to live separate from God. We're going to be tempted to do things we should not do because we were told not to, because that puts a barrier because we're not listening to God. But we don't have to. It's not that we won't, it's that we have the option now. We know how to walk through it because we know who to lean on. And so when we talk about the topic of evil, all evil simply is a life lived separate from God, and all it's rooted in sin that could latch itself onto our heart. It's the root that grew in our heart because we chose to live separate from God. This is what evil is. Evil is not complex. It's not some crazy thing. It's the ability to choose life separate from God. And that's what Adam did. That's what Eve did. So, next thing we're going to look at is what, so we talked about evil being rooted in our heart, but what is evil truly rooted in? And it's probably going to sound a little crazy. Evil is rooted in love. It's probably a hard thing to kind of wrap your mind around, but it's true. Evil is rooted in love. Because evil is what again? Tell me, what's evil? Living life separate from God. So, what does that require? What does that require us to be able to do? If we can live separate from God, what does that require us to be able to do?
Make a choice.
To choose. It requires free will. Can you have love without free will? No. If you have the love of your life who can never choose anyone but you, do they really love you? Love requires free will. Evil is life separate from God. Evil is rooted in love because God wanted us to be able to choose him. He loved us enough to give us the option to choose evil. Evil is rooted in God's love to desire a relationship with us. He put his heart out there in a way that he knew we could choose to reject him and shatter his very heart. That's what Genesis 6:6 tells us. It says that he regretted making man and it grieved his heart. He gave us the option to choose him. We rejected him. We shattered his heart. And that is the root of evil, is love. As much as it sounds weird, we would not have evil unless there was free will. Free will and love requires free will. God loved us enough to give us the choice to choose him or not. Love is rooted in, or evil is rooted in love. He loved us enough to give us the option to choose him or not. Last thing, pain is a universal struggle. St. Augustine famously made a quote. He said, "Physical pain is the highest form of evil." I would argue that's not true. Physical pain sucks. Like, just being honest, right? Maybe we wake up with achy joints or not feeling too well. Physical pain sucks. It's not fun. But physical pain is not the highest form of evil. It's not the highest form of pain. C.S. Lewis tells us that it is much easier to say my tooth hurts than to say my heart's broken. That's what happened for me. Just this year, I was so broken and I wouldn't reach out to people. I tried to kill myself twice. It's far easier to sit there and say, I am physically injured than it is to say, my heart is hurting. And although sometimes the heart condition or the heart pain is not as dramatic, it's harder to overcome. Talk to someone who has a big old gash in the arm. They're going to be like, I get some stitches, right? It's not incredibly deep. Talk to someone who is so broken they don't know how to move forward. Having the words is so much harder. And so when we talk about pain, heart pain is the worst kind of pain. It is the kind of pain that no one talks about and everybody needs to look into. That's why the first thing about apologetics is listening. Because if you're not willing to listen, you can't hear their heart. The next thing is about asking questions, because asking questions is the willingness to understand a man's heart is complicated and deep, and is like deep water, and it is hard to get to know. And it's the wisdom to understand how to pull that out. And the last thing is being able to choose the words that's going to best impact their heart. That is the pathway to impact people's lives. And that is the pathway for apologetics. And that's how we get over the issue of how do you deal with pain? How do you deal with a good God when there's so much evil? Is because we're willing to listen first, ask questions, and then speak. I wrote this year just because, like I said, it was a rougher year. Made a lot of mistakes in my life. Not a perfect man. Failed consistently. Done a lot of wrong things, done a lot of right things, seen a lot of things, and was not in a good place. Worst place I've ever been, honestly. I struggled with wanting to die for a couple years. As a teenager, I prayed for 2 years, saying, God, just kill me. and then got good, went into ministry, 5 years, traveled the world, came home, settled down, and then isolated myself so much that I kind of didn't know how to reach out. And so the way I kind of was able to help myself through that was I did a lot of writing. And I wrote this, and it says, in my life, I may be the biggest failure, but I have seen the most because I was willing to shoot for the sun. And because I was willing to shoot for the sun, I have hit the moon and saw the magnificent beauty of our Creator. And as I have free fallen back to earth, enjoying the exhilarating joy of chasing big dreams, I will fall face first to earth with scars like no other, all solely for the purpose of sharing the beauty of my Creator's story. Pain is a universal struggle. We all go through it. Everyone will go through it. The question is, what's the difference between a person who has no faith in Christ and a person who does? When you have no faith in Christ, you don't understand where evil is, how we got there, what good is. You have no objective source for it. Beyond that, you don't know how to make sense of the pain and the hurt and the suffering and the trauma and the things you go through. And so, one benefit about being a Christian is we can make sense of it. We can put hope into it because we know this is not the end. And when you're a Christian, we're told that God tells us that for those that love him, he works all things for his good. And pain from the Christian perspective is our ability to relate with someone else and share our story. It's the ability to connect with them and say, hey, I'm a mess too, but be genuine. If you've not been there, don't pretend to be. If you've been there, be willing to share. And the way we are able to answer the question of what evil is and how we deal with pain and suffering is this. God in his infinite love wanted his creation and wanted a relationship with him. He put us in a perfect place where we could have a relationship with him and gave us a choice of choosing him or rejecting him by putting the tree and saying, just don't eat this. Man failed by saying, I know better, telling woman, hey, don't eat from the tree of knowledge and don't even touch it. And woman went and took it, ate it, gave it to man. We are told that the first man who failed was Adam, not Eve. It landed solely on the shoulders of men, and we see that in Genesis 2, where God gave the instructions to Adam. Eve wasn't even made yet. Then Eve says the instructions are this. Where's the missing link? We're told that Adam is the first sinner and that Christ came to fix that. Christ was the perfect Adam. He was the one who came to repair everything. And God loved us enough that when we messed up and we rejected him and we shattered his very heart like we see in Genesis 6, and we introduced evil because said we don't want a life with you, and he said, okay, I'm going to give you a way to choose me and a way back to me, but at the end of the day, I'm going to give everybody what they want. If you chose to love me in life, you'll spend the rest of eternity with me. If you chose to not want me in life, then you won't have to. Evil is rooted in love. Hell is rooted in love. It's giving people what they want. It is not him saying, I'm condemning anyone. It's saying, you make your choice. I gave you that choice. I love you enough that I want a relationship with you, but I don't want robots. And when you go through pain and suffering, and you deal with evil in this life, and you deal with having to live separate from me, it wasn't me. It was your decision. It was the condition that now dwells in your very heart because of what Adam did. And because it's been that way for the subsequent generation. And it will be until Christ comes back. And so evil is a life separate from God. And the hope is that Christ, in his love, came down, wrapped himself in flesh, being the perfect substitute for our sin, being the one who's able to buy us back out of slavery. That's what redemption means, is to redeem from slavery. It was a term during the first century where someone was in debt. The only way that you could be bought out of debt was through a kinsman debtor or a kinsman redeemer. who was outside of the debt, but was of blood with you so they could come and pay your debt. And Christ, being God, could live a perfect life and be outside our debt, and being fully man could pay our debt by dying for our sins. And that is the hope, and that is the blessing, and that is how we deal with the problem of pain and evil. Pain and evil's foundation is love. Its foundation and the answer to it is Christianity. Christianity is objectively reliable and can be shown to be trustworthy beyond a reasonable doubt. And it's not illogical to say, this is the evidence, this is where I'm going to put my hope, and this is the answer to how I deal with the world's biggest struggles, our life's biggest struggles. So that's how we deal with pain and evil. Any questions as we kind of wrap everything up? So, yeah.
When you say that heaven is rooted in love and hell is rooted in love, it's giving people what they want, are you implying that love is giving people what they want?
Love is not, to a certain extent, yeah. You don't give a child what they want because you're teaching them, but at the same time, if you got a child and they never want to live with you, what are you going to do, handcuff them to a wall?
If they're a young child, I hope you would just let them go.
Well, hopefully we're not all young children, right? It's loving us enough because you got to remember, we are the bridegroom of Christ. We're in relationship with Christ. It is not, there is a father-son, father-daughter aspect to it, but it is also a relationship. And you don't chain the person or the love of your life to a wall and say, you will love me forever. It is giving them what they want. You don't want me? Okay. You do want me? Okay. That is what it is. It's not forcing anything on anybody. It's giving them exactly what they want. Any other questions or comments or things you guys want to talk about? This is the Q&A time. So this is where we ask questions, comments, or things you guys want to talk more about. So you guys took notes? Yeah.
On a similar topic to what we were just saying, when you were talking about heaven and hell and not giving people what they want, it sounded like you said something like when people choose to live a life separate from God, they're choosing hell, and God is saying, that wasn't me, I didn't do that, that's your choice. That sounds a little different than the parts of the Bible where it talks about hell as an active judgment.
To a certain extent, you can give someone what they want and not be your fault, and it's still be disappointing. Ever heard of natural consequences? My mother loved that one as a child. Okay, you want to go eat that frozen hot dog? Go for it. Love them enough to let them choose. The consequence is what it is what it is.
Can I speak to that?
Huh.
One of the hardest things I ever had to do was to love him enough to do what he wanted.
That's not enough context.
I'm fixing to.
Okay, I was just going to say.
When he was 16, he found out he had cancer. 3 days, he goes in his room, comes out, I don't want chemo. I don't want radiation. If I took control and said, you're going to do it my way, what kind of relationship would have gone forward? He was 16. He was a young man. The best way to show him you love them is walk beside them as they make their decision. When he was 5, he's right. I said, no, but it's frozen. It's okay.
That was Jeremiah.
I have another son. Okay, well, all right, so you want that? And they learned, okay, so she was right. The greatest form of love is to let them decide and not manhandle them. Whether it be a little girl or a little boy, you walk beside them, you guide them. You don't give a child 500 pieces of candy and say, pick. They can't, it drives them insane. But you do give them the opportunity at 2 and 3 and 4, you give them 2 choices and you let them pick. And there is so much power that comes from stepping back and safely walking by them. And that is how I see God works with us. Because if he makes us do everything, then there really is no free love from him. It's all his force. I don't know if that helped at all, but I very much believe in genuine love is not by force. I'm not opposed to spanking. Not opposed to that at all. But there's a time and a place.
Depends on how the Q&A goes.
What did you say?
I said, kind of depends on how the Q&A goes, I guess.
Anything else? Any topic? Anything we can kind of discuss? It? Yeah.
Can you expand on Hadrian's conquest of Israel?
Not as much as I'd like. So fun resource for you guys. There is a YouTube channel who does very, very good work. It's called Expedition Bible. It's an archaeology channel, and they pull up a lot of the archaeology reports. They talk to you about how things happened, where it came from, how it was dated. And so if you look up Tomb of Jesus on Expedition Bible, they will walk you through Hadrian's Temple, how it got there, what happened, Alina Capitolina, which is the area that it was called during Hadrian's time, and give you all that information. I can tell you that it's there, and I can tell you that that's where Christ's tomb is, and I can tell you that the church is called the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. That's what I got.
We Googled it. It was a third Jewish revolt that I didn't know happened. So that's pretty cool.
Markova.
Yeah, the Jews. We talked about it at the break, Josh and I.
Yeah.
That's,
Yeah, I didn't. Like I said,
the Jews. I wouldn't have expected it to be the Jews.
Neither would I, to be honest.
It's always the Jews.
What's up?
On page 10,
Okay.
in the archaeology section, can't just that's on there still. I think I just missed a step in the connection of information. Because it says that the inscription is talking about the victory of an Armenian king,
Mhm.
Aramaean king, my bad, over the king of Israel, the king of the house of David. But wouldn't that have been either the Syrians or the Babylonians?
Armenian? No. It was it's an Armenian stele, and it was talking about the conquering of the house of David. It's talking about the split of the kingdom.
Yeah. So is this just a defeat, but not
Yes.
necessarily when they went into exile?
Yeah.
Is that the
No,
same
no.
thing?
So a stele is just saying, hey, I beat you. It's like a trophy, right? It doesn't necessarily mean full, we are now over this area. It is a, this conquest, this happened. It's not necessarily saying we occupied the area. That makes sense?
Yeah, that's the step I was missing.
So a stele is essentially a trophy. Best way to think of it.
And correct me if I'm wrong, I think there is a biblical account in one of the books of Kings that talks about this event.
Quite possibly.
Where the two kings combine forces and lose a battle in the north of Israel. And so I think it is in Scripture. It's not that they were totally defeated, but they lose a battle pretty handily.
Yeah.
And then the southern kingdom of Judah actually gets in trouble because they partnered with the wicked northern king of Israel. 3 or 4 generations into the split of the kingdom, I think. By generations, I mean king generations.
That sounds correct, because I do know that there was a time where they did collaborate, North and South Kingdom, for a battle, and that is quite possibly what it is. I'm not going to say it is, because I don't know for sure. I can tell you a stele is simply saying we won in this conquest. It does not necessarily say full conquering, occupying. It is saying we won this battle. If that makes sense. So.
And then they all lost to the Assyrians, except for
Well, anything else?
Jerusalem specifically.
Yeah.
Probably.
Yeah.
So it says here, pain is a universal struggle, something that we all can kind of relate to. And obviously, the infliction of pain on one another is evil. but is pain itself evil? If we know that evil is rooted in love, and love is the evil is the choice to choose to not be with God, with pain itself being in existence being both something you can choose while being with God and without, would that make it itself evil?
So, one, you have to classify what kind of pain you're talking about. Because again, there's physical pain, and then there's heart pain. Because physical pain is what it is. Heart pain is very, very complex. Pain and evil kind of can be used interchangeably, and here's why. We would not know pain if we did not know a choice or a life separate from God. We would know physical pain, we would know emotional pain, we would not know pain unless we have the opportunity to live separate from God or to live in evil. Does it make sense?
Yes.
So you can kind of use pain and evil interchangeably. Suffering you can't, because suffering really is a choice. You can be in pain, you can go through evil, and you cannot suffer, right? Because where is our joy supposed to be from? Okay, we can have peace in what kind of circumstances? So we know suffering is a choice. Suffering is the view in which we go through life. Suffering is our perspective. Pain and evil are conditions. Does it make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. Can I answer you?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
So does that mean there will be a possibility for evil and pain after the redemption of all things?
So
So will there be no
love
more love?
will,
No. We can still choose, but why would we choose if we don't have the inclination? Right now, we have the inclination to choose life separate from God because it is what is rooted in us. That's what Paul tells us. When we are given our new bodies and we no longer have that rooted in our very flesh, and we're not inclined to live life separate from God, and we know that what the pain and the suffering that is attached and the evil that's attached to when we do, why would we choose that? So no.
Not the first time.
well, he said,
Well,
know what it,
we know what it is.
know
Now we
our
have the
inclination
knowledge.
and knowledge.
Right? The beginning, when we look at creation, we see God put Adam and Eve, say, here's a choice, don't do it, but up to you. Satan brings bad gifts, says here, this is better, we choose life separate from God, evil being life separate from God. Now we know what evil is, or a life separate from God, and the consequences of it. Why would we ever choose that if we aren't inclined to? So no, we won't have that, and we will still have the opportunity. We will still love and have choice to do so. We just won't because we're not inclined that way, and we know the pain and we know all the brokenness that comes with it. So no. Does that answer you?
So are we going to remember?
Yeah. Or does it say we won't?
Or does it say we will?
Why would he take away that? It doesn't say that we're going to lose that knowledge. And why would he take away the one thing that, why would he take that away? Does it make sense? There's no inclination that we will. There's no inclination we won't that I see in Scripture. But what I will say is the one thing that let us know what it's like to live away from him, why would he take that away? Because that's what tells us not to do it. Does it make sense?
So I guess my real question is, why base the entire conclusion of the eternal argument of choice in love being that from the Lord based on something that we don't know either way, what the memory will be of our memory of evil within the biblical narrative of what God has told us what will happen?
Why base it as...
So we're basing the entire premise that there will be a continuation of choice because we remember evil.
Well, the continuation of choice, we will, because we have the biblical precedence that will be the case. Because choice was from the very beginning when everything was perfect. Why would he take that away when everything's renewed?
Right, but that's very different than having the memory of what it was like to be separated from God.
Because he says there's no more sorrow, no more pain.
No more sorrow, no more pain doesn't mean we don't remember it. And it doesn't say we won't. And the reason why you root it in that is because if this is the standard, is that we can choose, if we're given new body, new life, with him, and we made the choice to live with him, right? And again, she is right. Hell is a place of judgment, of discipline, of, okay, you wanted it, here you go. You don't discipline somebody for something they don't remember, right? In the same way, you don't reward somebody for something that they don't remember. You don't. It's an either or. It's just a logical conclusion. If there's no commentary either way, and the biblical narrative has said choice is foundational and love is foundational to creation, why would he take away the thing that lets us know what life was like away from him? And say, hey, you remember this? Here, this is peace with me forever. And these people saying, okay, here, this is what you wanted. This is your place, and you don't need to be with me forever. You can have what you wanted. You don't discipline someone for what they remember. You don't reward someone for what they don't remember. It's a both way thing. Does it make sense?
It also talks about how like we'll be praising Christ for what he did for eternity. So we're for sure going to remember like the suffering that Christ went through on the cross, which means and we're going to be praising him for it, which means we have to remember why he went through it, which is our own personal sin.
Yeah.
So
Does that
I
answer?
think it does say we'll remember at least some.
There will definitely be the marks of it.
Does that mean we can suffer without the pain?
What?
So we'll still remember all this. If through memory we can suffer, because it's just a mindset, as your argument was. If it's just a mindset, if suffering is just a mindset, can we still suffer without the pain?
I don't know.
Yes.
We'll stop.
Toddlers throw themselves into pits of misery.
I'm a toddler again? Yes. So here's what I will say.
Take that out of your mouth right now.
How do you know? So here's what I will say. While I can't say, like, for sure I know this, because I don't, right? I would say no. Because if you're in perfect bliss forever, why would you suffer? You're in perfect bliss. You get to be with God forever. There's no more sorrow, there's no more pain, there's no more suffering. Why would you suffer? Even if you know what happened and you get to live that way, why would you suffer when you can live in gratitude with the person who gave you eternal life and an ability to live in peace? So I would say no. Does that answer you at all?
The possibility exists, but you just never check. That makes sense.
I'm saying I don't think that is the case, but I'm saying I can't tell you for sure that that's the case because I don't know. That's just my best explanation of it. Anybody
I
else?
guess, what do we do with the verse that says, greater love has no bounds than this, and to lay one's life down for his friends? That kind of seems indifferent of the friend's choice to have the friend lay down their life. Greater love has no bounds than this.
You're missing a link there. Explain what you're trying to ask because it's not.
Well, it's just indifferent of choice. So God has revealed that there's no greater love than to lay down your life for
Is
someone.
it indifferent of choice?
Oh, I think so. We didn't have a whole lot of choice on whether or not Jesus laid down his life.
Right.
And whether we choose to receive or accept it, God's love is displayed indifferent of the choice that we choose to make. John 3:16, for God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believes in him shall not perish but have everlasting life. So love is present whether we choose to receive it or not. So I wouldn't say that love is dependent on the choice.
Love is dependent on free will. Does it make sense? And
I would say
at the same
relationship is dependent on free will, not love.
at the same time, you're missing the fact that greater love has none than this. One lays his life down for a friend, still has choice involved. Whether you like my choice or not is irrelevant. There's still a choice involved.
You're talking about he's talking about the recipient's love, and you're talking about God's love.
Yeah.
Right.
So
There's still
you can love
choice.
someone without them choosing to love you back, but they have the choice to love you back.
Correct.
Yeah.
There's still choice involved. Love requires free will and choice. It's now whether you receive it or I show it, those are different topics. Love at its foundation requires free will and choice because If you can't choose to love or receive or do anything, then you're just a robot that's programmed to do what I tell you. And there is no love.
Yeah, cool.
So love at its very foundation has to be rooted in free will and choice. Does that make sense? Anything else before we kind of wrap up? Thank you guys for letting me come. I very much appreciate it. Hopefully this was a little bit beneficial. If it wasn't, sorry. I did my best.
Hey, don't tell his mom. He will get a spanking.
More like she will take away, like, go mess with my car somehow. She might try to go take a spark plug out, which I'd appreciate because I need to put new ones in. But thank you guys. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you. But thank you guys so much for having me. I very much appreciate it. If it was hopefully a blessing for you guys. If not, again, sorry, I did try. Please feel free to keep the packets. Like I said, if you want to know a little bit more about me, there's the information for that. So other than that, I'm done.